The New York grand jury on Thursday indicted Donald Trump over hush money payments made to porn star Stormy Daniels during his 2016 campaign, making the first former U.S. president to face criminal charges with that.
That's right, the historic indictment of the 76-year-old Republican who denies all wrongdoing in connection with payments made ahead of the election that sent him to the White House is certain to upend the current presidential race in which Trump hopes to regain office. So, of course, huge political ramifications as far as this indictment is concerned.
Absolutely. But will he be able to run office again? Of course, for that, yes, he will be allowed. Trump is expected to appear in court, and that's expected as early as Tuesday. Also the fact that, what really led up to his indictment, it was that affair that he had with Stormy Daniels. He, of course, has denied that affair back in 2006 when she was 27 years old and he was 60. Eventually, he was paid off for her silence, and that happened in 2016. And that was the time when he was running for office. Will he be allowed to run for office again? And will he be arrested? Those are the questions that are coming up. And will the supporters be taking to the streets in order to protest against this indictment?
That's right. In fact, they were politically speaking, and as we've been reporting since morning as well, that the first and the immediate fallout was expected to be a mobilization of his supporters. So far, of course, we are hearing that everything is calm. But, of course, Democrats have reacted to it as well. Republicans have also reacted to it, calling it political vendetta. But the timing, Divya, the timing has really come as a surprise to Donald Trump in the run-up to this indictment. Of course, we also saw that Trump tried to consolidate his position as far as the Republican Party is concerned. But I'm joined by my colleague Parmeshwar in the studio. Parma, as we've been saying, a historic indictment for the first time, in actually in U.S. presidential history for an ex-president or a sitting president to be indicted. What are the political ramifications? What is going to be its fallout? Take us through all the details and the highlights.
Vedant and Divya, for most people, getting indicted is a setback. But from Donald Trump's team, it's viewed as an opportunity, as we can tell so far. Now, aides to the former president moved aggressively to capitalize politically on news that a Manhattan grand jury had charged Trump, using it to fill their fundraising coffers, mobilize their loyalists, and further solidify his hold on his base of supporters in his presidential primary. Now, man, with no shortage of love for made-for-TV drama, as I mentioned earlier as well when we were speaking, Trump himself anticipated that media attention around this grand jury's decision may help him win sympathy and support. His team is preparing for a circus, to say the least. One Trump advisor actually compared the expected press frenzy of this entire verdict. According to them, it was O.J. Simpson on steroids. Now, Trump's campaign had spent weeks laying the groundwork for this moment. You remember, he had said 2 weeks ago that he will be arrested on a Tuesday, but that Tuesday was a little postponed, as we can tell. And those plans actually kicked into gear when news finally emerged that he was facing charges related to allegations that he made a hush money payment to a porn star, Stormy Daniels, during the waning days of the 2016 election. Now, Trump's campaign pushback has been swift so far. Just minutes after the news broke that he was being indicted, the campaign sent out a statement from Trump calling the charges political persecution and election interference at the highest levels in American history. But what happens if Trump is arrested now? If he is charged, Trump's lawyers have They've just indicated, that's the key word, that the former president's arrest would follow standard procedure. That means he would travel from his home at Mar-a-Lago in Florida to make an appearance at the New York City courthouse, complete with a formal booking, fingerprints, mugshots, the works. Given the historic nature of such a move and the security concerns involved, as you and Divya have been pointing out, the way this would unfold is uncertain as we speak and would likely be the subject of negotiation between the district attorney's office in Manhattan and Trump's legal team. Once this case is booked and a judge is selected, other details will eventually fall into place, such as the timing of the trial and possible travel restrictions, as well as the bail requirement for Trump. A conviction on a misdemeanor would result in a fine as well. But if Trump were convicted on a felony charge, he would face a maximum sentence of 4 years in prison, although some legal experts predict a fine is more probable and that any time behind bars is highly unlikely for the former president. But we also have local political reactions coming in. The two major U.S. political parties have fallen mostly in line with their responses to this indictment. Republicans, many of whom still see Trump as their party's de facto leader, was swift to defend the former president and attack the prosecutors bringing the case. They said this is more about revenge than it is about justice. In fact, his opponent, Nikki Haley, who is also a current 2024 presidential candidate, she said this, who was once Trump's UN ambassador as well. Now, Democrats who have used their congressional powers to investigate Trump have been deliberately measured in their responses so far. There was little champagne popping from party leaders as far as the Democrats are concerned. Rather, they emphasized the argument that no one is above the law and that Trump deserves due process.
Right. Thank you so much, Parmeshwar, for getting us all those details. To get more on this, we have Glenn Carl, former Deputy National Intelligence Officer for Transitional Threats. This includes terrorism, on the National Intelligence Council, the career of CIA officer, author as well. We have a very good morning to you. Thank you so much for joining us here on NDTV 24/7. My first question is, can Donald Trump still run for office if he's arrested, and what are the kind of charges that he could be facing?
Well, it seems that he can run. In my own state of Massachusetts, there was a fellow about 60 years ago who ran for the governor position from prison and won. And so he was elected governor while a convicted felon serving a prison sentence. So Trump can run. The Republicans continue to be like lemmings following him over one cliff after another, but it hasn't had a particular consequence for him.
Mr. Carl, another important implication of his indictment is how it's actually going to affect the Republican campaign. Of course, we've been seeing, the Republicans already sort of cashing in on his indictment. So going ahead, what are going to be the implications of his indictment as far as the US presidential race is concerned and the campaign of the Republicans is concerned?
Well, that might be a harder question than doing the analysis of foreign threats that I did for my career. To answer accurately, the polling indicates, however, that most Republicans, I think it's something like 90%, think that this is a politically motivated injustice being done by a vindictive number of opponents of Trump, and they support him. He has a plurality of support, it seems, in the Republican Party heaving Trump. And so, at least short term, the expectation has been that being indicted would aid Trump electorally at the beginning. As a nation, however, 57%, I saw the last poll, of Americans think that he should not run, and the indictment is just the judicial process or the legal process following the law where it's supposed to go.
Right, Mr. Carl, how will the indictment affect the other ongoing Trump-focused investigations?
Well, it's impossible, of course, to separate political considerations from the legal, as much as the legal system in our society would like to and attempts to do that. So there has been speculation already that this indictment, the first in American history, a president or ex-president, would now make it easier for the other investigations ongoing, of which there are at least 3, to come to an indictment themselves, because this psychological taboo or barrier has now been breached. I don't know if that's true or if we're all just idly speculating, but I think that since the law is following its course, that
right.
It probably, on the whole, will strengthen the legal proceedings and the rule of law initially. It should be, the ideal is that no one of any standing is above the law. And so this is now evidence that there's an attempt to make that the case. So perhaps that will make other indictments less difficult.
Right, that's an interesting point you're making. One quick last question, Mr. Carl, that one of the immediate effects of his indictment was expected to be that there would be this immediate mobilization of Trump supporters. In fact, that's something that we saw in the build-up of his indictment as well, how he in a sense consolidated his position in the Republican Party and, in a sense trying to mobilize his supporters as well ahead of the indictment. So what is the situation as far as that aspect is concerned?
Well, so far, it's only been a few hours, and from what I can tell, just by following the media here, there has not been any particular action or massing of people anywhere. However, we shouldn't be too optimistic about human nature, and people do what their leaders tell them, believe what they hear in large numbers. When I was a small boy, the television program Superman was on television, and he used to jump out of windows and fly. And seriously, this is not a joke, a large number of children jumped out of windows, and some of them killed themselves because they saw this happening. Similarly, the public on January 6th did largely what it was incited to do and assaulted the Capitol. So there is, and then someone tried to shoot people in a pizza parlor because a crazy person said that Hillary Clinton was running a pedophile brothel out of the pizza parlor's basement, which is lunatic. So if those things happen, and they did, we should be apprehensive that there could be a violent response to the indictment.
Right. Thank you so much, Glenn Carl, for joining us on the broadcast.